To think that at one point we got blockbusters like Pirates of the Caribbean, LOTR, The Matrix, the Raimi Spider-Mans, Finding Nemo, Elf, Harry Potter, Signs, and whatnot. Those were the golden years. But now, in the past 5 years, we've been blessed with a whopping 1 or 2 big movies that can even hold a candle to those gems. I mean, seriously? Talk about a creative drought. And don't even get me started on the lack of originality. It's like Hollywood took a nosedive into the sea of unoriginality, never to resurface. These days, it's all just regurgitated versions of previous works. It's like they put all the scripts in a blender and hit the derivative setting. Can we please have some fresh ideas? Or is that too much to ask? Of course, we can't ignore the big bad culprits behind this mess. First, the disappearance of mid-budget films, making way for either shoestring budget indie projects or bloated mega productions. And thanks to social media, corporations now feel obligated to cram heavy-handed political messages into their movies. Because, nothing screams entertainment like a blatant political agenda, right? Oh, and let's not forget about the algorithmic formulaic bullshit that has taken over the industry. It's like every movie is crafted by the same person, following the same tired formula. How refreshing. It's a homogenized film culture out there, folks, where everything is just one big pile of sameness. So when something remotely unique comes along, it's like finding a diamond in a landfill. Speaking of uniqueness, let's give a small nod to Dune, a book adaptation that dares to be a little different. Sure, it's not a groundbreaking original idea, but in this day and age, we'll take what we can get. It's the closest thing we've had in the past decade that doesn't feel like every other movie out there. Hooray for small victories! And who do we blame for all of this? Why, the leftist woke culture, of course. Not that I enjoy using the word woke, because it has deviated so far from its original definition, it's practically unrecognizable. But hey, let's point fingers and stir up some controversy while we're at it. The state of cinema today. It's enough to make you want to grab a bag of popcorn and rewatch those classics from yesteryear. Here's hoping for a resurgence of originality and a dash of sanity in the world of movies. Until then, let's revel in the sameness, shall we?
I think the most important thing is inclusivity and more women. I mean, basically just more women anywhere, anytime, all at once.
By the way, he's never made a movie with a female lead. The Color Purple, thank you. Okay, I'm wrong.
Most blame the leftist woke culture. Now, I don't like using the word woke because it's one word that doesn't stay into its original definition. The term woke refers to being aware of and actively addressing social and political issues, particularly those related to race and inequality. In recent years, there has been a greater focus on representation and inclusivity in media, as well as a push to address social issues in storytelling. This has led to a trend of movies and TV shows that are more woke in their themes and characters. I don't respect the word that evolves and been co-opted by fringe groups to further both of their agendas. It embarrasses me as I sometimes use the term woke to describe bad writing. They really hurt the actual movement and take everyone backwards. I'll try not to use the word woke in this video because it really limits the conversation and debate one might have with any of the social injustice stuff currently going on in the cultural zeitgeist. Woke in Hollywood means interrupting the creative flow to insert anything from well-meaning asides to outright lectures into stories bound for TV, the printed page of the big screen. The word has been weaponized in Hollywood. Woke culture also leads to gender or race-swapped versions of successful franchises because of inclusivity, when what that really does is send the incorrect message that women or non-whites lack the gravitas to carry their own franchises. We're original characters that happened to be their race or gender in the past, and nobody complained. Simply having a minority or non-white male star does not set people off. What sets people off is when you change established characters on the premise of representation rather than establishing new characters on the premise of representation. When the race or gender is changed, the character is simply reduced to race or gender, and their other qualities are an afterthought. So, when the race or gender of a character is changed, it is bound to upset fans of that particular story's lore. When minority race characters are changed to white, those opposed call it whitewashing. When white or male characters are changed, those opposed call it woke. At the end of the day, no one likes to see characters they have grown to love have their race and gender swapped, because deep down we all know the change has no purpose to the story, just the agenda of those behind the change. I don't believe for a second that any of those companies actually give a rat's furry behind about any of the people they claim to care about. They are just opportunists. It makes them money. That's the whole concept of woke films, is that we, the paying customers, are sleeping through a film as an escape, and you must be woken up to acknowledge injustices in the world because escapism is a form of privilege that cannot be tolerated. The agenda is too important to be left out. Its efforts to promote tolerance seemingly blind to the fact that its refusals were itself probably intolerant to the cultural and political views of other cultures. It's funny how much hatred is directed towards people who simply point out these woke moments in films and call them out for what they are from the same people who started the movement and now pretend it doesn't really exist. The audiences are not fans of seeing diversity and representation being done well. They just want to be entertained for a few hours and go home. But they can't have that? Nope. Movies are no long made for the purpose of enjoyment and fun anymore. Movies are known for showing audiences how to be better people, how to be strong, determined, and resilient. But that's no longer the case. The audiences are being taught a terrible life lesson, especially the male audience because they are men. Films today often come across as pandering and patronizing rather than entertaining and fun. I consider films like the 2016 Ghostbusters, Ocean's 8, and the more recent Charlie's Angels reboot as obvious examples of studio companies that are pandering to Twitter in an effortless way to cash in on the changing social climate and advertise it as such. It's usually out-of-touch people that live in gated communities that pander and virtue signal the hardest. The people who usually use the term Latinx tend to be those who are so pale that their skin matches with mayonnaise. Those are the type of people that are behind films like that Charlie's Angels reboot. Hollywood has always had strong female characters in films, and the reason the majority of older films are not woke is because they allowed the audience to label those leads as strong through the characters' actions themselves. You didn't hear Ripley in Aliens making comments like, "I'm a badass girl." You didn't see the men in the film portrayed as weak and dumb for the sake of building up the female character through contrast. Ghostbusters and MIB, Men in Black International, both films have female leads who are smart, and Chris Hemsworth is portrayed as dependent and dumb. He did the same thing in Thor: Love and Thunder. People want a story that's as close to reality as possible, not muscular feminist robots who don't feel anything. We all know the film industry, like many other industries, have historically been marked by various forms of oppression and inequality towards women. While progress has been made over the years, and the media is a very useful tool that can be used to shape and change people's minds, make better people for the future. But Hollywood's solution to past oppression is more oppression. So everyone is equally oppressed. They don't want equality. They want superiority. Let's talk about Captain Marvel, shall we? What a delightful character. I mean, who doesn't love a flawless, perfect, arrogant, unlikable superior bully? But hey, let's not single her out. Tony Stark and Thor are also quite arrogant, but those characteristics were portrayed as their flaws that they needed to overcome and work on. Now, in this era where it's apparently crucial to present women as empowered, can you believe it? A female superhero with flaws? Outrageous. They decided to reinvent Captain Marvel as the epitome of female empowerment. Every plotline screams, "I am a woman, hear me roar," because subtlety is overrated, right? And forget about humor or character development. Who needs that when you can have a one-dimensional, invincible powerhouse? When it comes to showcasing strong female characters, filmmakers these days don't just make the women strong. They also make the male characters dumb as rocks, just to highlight how amazing she is versus how crap the male character is and how utterly pathetic the male counterparts are. It's truly a sight to behold. Nothing says empowerment like a petite woman effortlessly pummeling a hulking stuntman twice her size. It's a true testament to physics-defying entertainment. But you know what's truly mind-boggling? Filmmakers of the past didn't need to stoop to such levels. Take Ridley Scott and his writer Dan O'Bannon, for example. They didn't need to make Ellen Ripley a great female character at the expense of her male counterparts being terrible or brainless. They all had their skills and flaws, creating a realistic dynamic. Similarly, James Cameron and William Wisher didn't have to diminish Kyle Reese's character to uplift Sarah Connor. Both characters were wonderfully fleshed out with their own strengths and weaknesses. It's almost as if they trusted their audience to appreciate well-rounded characters without resorting to cheap tricks. Oh, the state of modern cinema. We're truly blessed with these masterpieces that prioritize heavy-handed empowerment over nuance and subtlety. So let's raise our glasses to Captain Marvel, the epitome of crude, misanthropic filmmaking. Bravo! Another issue with modern celebrities is that they are just influencers, promoting political agendas, products, lifestyles, or personal brands. The mass media tells us all about every actor, so there is no more mystery about them, as there always was prior to the 1980s to the early 2000s. That takes away a lot of the attraction of a new movie. The actors may already be oversaturated, and they are everywhere. The industry has been left of center for decades, but today's stars push their political views in ways we haven't seen in the past. Simply by using their thumbs to type whatever crap that comes to mind and send it to social media for the world to see and have an opinion about it, in an endless quest to hug the public's attention. Also exposing themselves to us for who they truly are behind the script. Some of these people show us that they are not that special, and prove to be stupid and ignorant like most social media average idiots individuals you come across now and then on the internet. The so-called stars of today are not much more than high-paid prostitutes, and corruptors who think their views and opinions are impotent, and have value because nobody calls them out for their stupidity. It might be hard to believe now, but there was a time when we were blessed with a surplus of captivating male heroes on the silver screen. These were the awe-inspiring figures who resonated with us, filling our hearts with aspirations and dreams. Whether they were underestimated fighters who overcame incredible challenges, daring adventurers risking everything for fame and glory, or gritty law enforcement officers battling the dark underbelly of society, they were regarded as godlike beings among mere mortals. Once upon a time, these movie stars were cherished as living symbols of the American dream, glamorous, refined, and larger than life. Yet they seemed distant, residing in a realm separate from our own, leaving us in awe. They provided inspiration for ordinary folks to strive for greatness, knowing deep down that they could never truly reach such heights. An entire generation of men emerged, kicking butts, conquering against all odds, and emerging victorious. They effortlessly exuded coolness while saving the day. Alas, that era has faded, and the once mighty lineup of male cinematic heroes has dwindled to a mere handful of aging characters, hanging on by a thread before inevitably being recast, rebooted, or remade. Now they appear as a melancholic, outdated joke, devoid of humor and punchlines. The traditional archetype of the heroic male lead, which had been the foundation of cinema for almost a century, seems to have lost its relevance in today's world of entertainment. They are deemed too antiquated, too laden with toxicity, and too risky to be thrust into the limelight. Consequently, they have been replaced by more acceptable alternatives. This emerging trend has been creeping into films and TV for quite some time, and I believe the issue manifests itself in various forms and tropes. I'm not talking about the Marvel comic book heroes. I mean the classic James Bond types. Real men, not men in tights who shoot lasers from their eyes. The actors in the above-mentioned movies, the likes of Harrison Ford, Tom Cruise, and Denzel Washington, are not just physically imposing individuals capable of commanding the screen. They're an endangered species. They are representations of a time that is quickly coming to an end. Men are far more likely to be viewed as perpetrators of various crimes, and women are far more likely to be viewed as faultless victims. These come at a time when masculine energy in man is being drained from society, not just in Hollywood, and it's replaced with feminist masculinity. Hollywood is doing all in its power to demonize masculinity and kill off traditional Hollywood heroes, making traditional male characters look like total idiots who never deserved the titles, and now these updated versions are simply better by the virtue they are women. We don't need to know what kind of training or journey they had because of some plot armor. We are just supposed to accept them as better, because character building just gets in the way. All Mary Sues with no flaws and all are perfect and don't need no man. In modern films, we have girl boss films that always fail at anything but never fail to disappoint. Birds of Prey and Charlie's Angels were perfect examples of girl power defeating a lot of over-accommodating stuntmen and made, I think, $15 million between them with a combined production cost of $350 million. Mulan cost $300 million and made back $60 million. They want to blame the male audience for these failures, but the last census shows 338 million people live in America, and more than half are women. With current ticket prices, if even 1 in 20 women went to watch these movies, they would clear around $500 million in box office. But it turns out women don't want to keep sitting through the same "man or bad and you go girl" over and over and over again. Whenever a woke production flopped in 2022, the actors, producers, and reviewers simply blamed the audience. Hollywood is becoming the only industry in the world where the customer is always wrong. The star of Bros, Billy Eichner, blamed homophobia for his gay rom-com's poor takings at the box office. Some critics blamed racism for the audience negativity towards the wokeified Rings of Power. And they blamed sexism for the backlash against She-Hulk attorney at law. Of course, neither racism nor sexism was the real reason the public disliked these movies and shows. The reason was that these films and shows are tendentious, preachy, and just not very good. The main character in She-Hulk delivers turgid feminist lectures about the horrors of catcalling. Remember the Dark Knight film and Batman's suit? Well, forget it because feminism took a big runny dump on it. There's one girl boss movie that did not fail at the box office, and there were reasons behind that. Captain Marvel did not bomb at the box office. It made over $1 billion, for obvious reasons. It was the MCU film sandwiched between two of the highest-grossing Marvel films of all time, the two most anticipated movies of all time, tricking audiences into thinking it was relevant to the story somehow. Everyone got hyped up for it when they saw the Infinity War after-credit scene, and of course because of it, nobody wanted to miss anything before Endgame hit theaters. But then it turned out to be a mediocre film, everything from the dry and robotic actress to the butchered plot. For most of the film, she's a brainwashed soldier taught to refrain from emotion or being human. The Winter Soldier has virtually the same character arc. U.S. military, injured and captured by enemy forces, brainwashed to fight for them and forget who they are, rediscovers their real self with the help of their old best friend and rebels against their brainwashing captors. The audiences did not really like it and has dropped to less than 30 on Rotten Tomatoes last time I checked. And it was released in a month that is typically slow in the box office. Now they are unable to do the same trick, so they have demoted her standalone MCU film from Captain Marvel 2 to The Marvels. This shows that in 2019, many were simply forced to sit through its political wiles out of a sense of FOMO and obligation brought on by the gargantuan commercial entity the MCU had built with Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. Talking about the girl boss Mary Sue's. Ah, Rey from Star Wars, the infamous Mary Sue herself. What a delightfully unremarkable character she is, just like Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. They both start off as aimless wanderers, drifting from day to day, one yearning to find her long-lost parents, the other desperate to escape the sandy hellhole known as Tatooine. So far, so relatable, right? But then, out of the blue, Rey suddenly becomes a prodigy in the art of piloting the Millennium Falcon. No training, no explanation. She's just a natural, I suppose. Who needs logic when you have Mary Sue magic? Unlike Luke, who had the audacity to provide a simple explanation for his piloting skills, mentioning those exciting womp rats he used to shoot in his T-16. How quaint. But Rey? Nah, no need for such trivial details. She just hops into the Falcon and handles it like a seasoned pro. Who cares about consistency or storytelling when you can have instant expertise, right? Oh, and let's not forget her encounter with the legendary Han Solo. Despite being the owner of the Falcon for over 3 decades, Han suddenly becomes a mere bystander when the ship encounters a problem. It's Rey, the all-knowing savior who swoops in to save the day. Because why not? Who needs established characters with expertise when we have our beloved Rey to fix everything effortlessly? It's not like Han's experience and Chewbacca's mechanical skills mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Nope. Rey's got it covered. But wait, there's more. Rey, who has never wielded a lightsaber in battle before, decides to have a duel with Kylo Ren, a formidable opponent. And guess what? She not only holds her own, but defeats him as well. Bravo, Mary Sue! Who needs character development or a believable journey when you can just magically surpass experienced warriors with ease? It's such a joy to witness, really. Oh, but let's not forget the recent Mulan remake, where we face the same issue. No real journey of discovery for the character because she's already perfect at everything she does. Because why bother with growth and development when you can just skip straight to perfection, right? Ah, the wonders of modern storytelling, where characters like Ray and Mulan effortlessly excel at everything without breaking a sweat. Who needs relatable struggles or meaningful arcs when we can have our beloved Mary Sues to save the day? It's pure cinematic brilliance, my friends. Remember, the original Star Wars movies were released 3 years apart. Now we get a new Star Wars TV show every few months. We're overwhelmed by mediocre content. Now we are consuming fast food cinema. Once in a while, you stumble upon some insipid Hollywood movie which makes you wonder why it was even made in the first place. The number of movies being made just for the sake of being made and getting street cred has risen drastically. These days, I'd rather read the original books than watch any film made for modern audience, and actually enjoy the lore and the story as the author intended. Why would I want to have my face rubbed in the narrative by actors and directors who hate me? The writing is terrible, and it's aimed at the male audience. I'm always disappointed, if not insulted. The characters are repulsive, the plot's predictable, and the messaging is relentless. In the past, movies seemed to be created for entertainment and comedic value. I could get lost in a movie while connecting to the characters and feeling their emotions. Today, they are just characters in a movie that I watch on a screen with no exciting plot and extremely flat dialogue. The creativity in Hollywood is gone. Everyone is so divided, it seems to be more about who can prove their views through entertainment than actually entertaining. If you're making movies for the right reason, monetary success will follow. Everybody enjoys a good story. That isn't something goes out of style, it's not a trend. A good story has timeless appeal. The emphasis on diversity in Hollywood is going to be the death of show business as we know it. They are no longer able to create anything new. There's a growing shift toward liberal, as many in the movie industry feel they no longer have the freedom to be creative. They are shooting themselves in the foot by shoving their agenda down everyone's throat every chance they get. I watch movies and shows to be entertained, not preached at by social justice warriors and their tired bleating about diversity and equality. I don't watch movies to have political correctness or be told how moral values should be. It's financially risky to launch a new IP, but at the same time they want to have greater representation, plus the pressure of having minorities be something other than passive side characters. Nobody likes to be reminded that the previous generation outdid them, and that what they're doing isn't cutting the mustard. But it needs to be said, you're not as good as your predecessors. Unless you touch people emotionally somehow, you are not an artist. You are a factory that makes movies, created for coddled award for attendance idiots by an arrogant pseudo-intellectual upper class who drown the guilt of their complicity in rapacious capitalism by inserting social justice into everything they create. That cringe you are experiencing when seeing the clumsily injected woke plot and characters is not because you hate black or gay people. It is the realization that art is no longer judged on merit, and filmmakers are only pushing liberal agendas, which wins a lot of self-congratulatory awards, because they are more interested in smelling their own farts. Hollywood has been infiltrated by woke progressives and social justice activists who think all movies and TV shows have to be diverse, inclusive, feminist-driven vehicles. Instead of focusing on good storytelling and interesting character development, movies nowadays focus on box-ticking and representation to the detriment of the storytelling. Hollywood seems to think the very vocal leftist on Twitter is what everyone else is thinking. That's the reason why woke movies fail, is because they lack credibility. When a movie tries to be woke but doesn't do its research, it comes off as inauthentic and often laughable. For example, the 2017 film The Last Jedi was criticized for its lack of knowledge about actual Jedi culture. They're poorly written and directed. A lot of times, the people behind these films don't really seem to understand what they're trying to say. They end up making films that are heavy-handed and preachy, and that's not what audiences want. Woke movies often rely on stereotypes and cliches in order to convey their message. This often results in the movie being preachy and didactic. Well, we've reached the end, folks. I hope you enjoyed this delightful journey into the abyss of modern cinema. Now here's a question to ponder. Is it just me? Or has the glorious rise of woke Hollywood sucked all the joy and creativity out of our beloved movies? I can't wait to hear your absolutely riveting opinions in the comments section below.